Hey friends, good afternoon. Welcome back to the Daily Dose. Today we are going to be doing day number 9 of our daily Bible reading plan. And day number 9 consists of the book of Genesis, chapters 29 through 31. And we're also going to be looking at Psalm number 9 today. So, let's begin. We do not have a read scripture video to go along with the text today. So, the only attachment or link that's down below for this one is going to be the PDF guide. If you haven't already got it, go down below, click on that link, and it will let you download a PDF copy of the reading plan that we're working through. All right, so in our text today, Jacob makes his way to Padan Aram, or Padan Aram if you got a country accent. What's going on here is that he is going to find his uncle. And when he goes to meet his uncle, he finds that his uncle has got a very attractive daughter. And he is interested in getting married. So there are two daughters that are involved in the situation. His uncle Laban, the oldest daughter is Leah. The younger daughter is Rachel. It tells us that Jacob did not find the older daughter, Leah, attractive, that she had weak eyes, but it does say that he found Rachel very attractive, and that's who he was interested in. So, they tried to set up a deal. Laban said, look, I'll let you marry my daughter Rachel, but you have to work for me for 7 years. Well, Jacob was like, okay, whatever. Your daughter is so appealing to me that I'm willing to do that. Let's go. So 7 years go by, and finally Jacob is able to marry Rachel. Well, at least that's what he thinks. There is a little twist that happens there, and I won't spoil it for you. You'll have to read to find out exactly what happens there. But anyways, as the story goes on, Jacob ends up having many children over the course of these chapters, so there's a pretty good amount of time that is spanned here. At least 14 years, but possibly a good bit more than that. And so after he has many children, he decides that he wants to get away from his family-in-law, his father-in-law, aka his uncle. He doesn't want to be involved with their family drama anymore. He wants to go back to where he came from and be with his people. So that's kind of where everything picks up and leaves off. Jacob makes it over there to this new land to go meet his uncle. And then at the end of chapter 31, he's trying to flee and leave with his family. So a couple of points of interest, things that were either interesting to me or things that spoke to me in some way or another. First one that I want to touch on is Genesis chapter 29, verses 17 and 18. This is shortly after Jacob arrives to Laban's and meets Laban's daughters. Chapter 17. And let me just back up to 16. Now Laban has two daughters. The older daughter was named Leah. The younger one was Rachel. There was no sparkle in Leah's eyes, but Rachel had a beautiful figure and a lovely face. Since Jacob was in love with Rachel, he told her father, I'll work for you for 7 years if you'll give me Rachel, your younger daughter, as my wife. And Laban agreed. What's kind of bizarre in this story, at least weird to people that are in the West, like us, as opposed to the Middle East or the Near East or even the Far East, in ancient times and even in present day times in the Near East and the Middle East, there are a good number of arranged marriages where sometimes when a boy and a girl were just children or babies, their parents would strike up a deal and say, look, I've got a daughter, you've got a son. How about we solidify this bond between our families, and when our children become old enough to get married, we will give them to each other in marriage. And they would make a deal, make a covenant, make an arrangement, have a feast. They would celebrate it, and that would be it. It would be a done deal. So before these kids ever grew up or even ever knew each other, they were potentially betrothed to each other to be married. So in this case, we see Jacob is trying to work over a deal with Laban, and I don't see anything in here that speaks about Rachel's opinion being asked for. Jacob just says, hey, look, I want her, and this is what I'll do. Will you give me to her? And her father says, yeah, that's a deal. You can have her. So it can be kind of hard for us to identify with that in the culture that we live in, where generally two consenting adults agree with one another. Hey, I like you, you like me. Hey, why don't we get married? But over in that culture back then, and even, like I said, present day, this still goes on. Marriages are arranged and oftentimes don't take into consideration how the two people getting married even feel about each other. So, something to think about. Also, Genesis chapter 29, verse 21. This is interesting. So, the 7 years go by where, Jacob said, I'll work for you for 7 years if you give me Rachel as my wife. And chapter 29, verse 21 says, finally, the time had come for him to marry her. Speaking of Jacob and Rachel, the 7 years go by. So finally, the time had come. Jacob says, I have fulfilled my agreement. Now give me my wife so I can sleep with her. It just goes to show you what most grooms' minds are on their wedding day. Give me my wife so that I can sleep with her. Go figure. Now, Genesis chapter 30, verse 27. This is something that spoke to me and still speaks to me. The principle that the blessings of God not only come down on those whom God favors, but those blessings will often overflow to those around the people that God is blessing. So in this case, we know that Jacob is chosen among God's people. Jacob is blessed by God. God has chosen to show extra amounts of grace and mercy and blessing to Jacob that he does not show to everyone else necessarily. And when we look at chapter 30, verse 27, we will see that Laban actually attests to that. And Laban, who I'm assuming, is an unbeliever. In the story we read that he has idols in his household, and there's not really a whole lot of information to make us think that this guy Laban is a follower of the Lord. But Laban says, please listen to me. Laban replied, I have become wealthy, for the Lord has blessed me because of you. So I think that same principle applies in our lives and in our time, in our era. I think that when people who are believers are living according to God's will and God is blessing them, I think that the blessings will flow out and it will be seen by unbelievers. And sometimes the unbelievers will even be included in those blessings. And that's just all that much more of a testimony to the goodness of God, especially when someone who doesn't know the Lord can see someone that does know the Lord. They see that person walking the walk and talking the talk and trying to imitate Christ. And they say, look, that person is doing what they're supposed to be doing, and God is blessing them. I want to be involved in that too. And that could perk other people's ears up to the Lord and draw attention and give someone an opportunity to share their testimony. So there's all kinds of places in the Bible where people who are not believers attest to God's goodness and to his grace and to him blessing his people. So it's one thing when people that believe can say, let me tell you something about God. But when the blessings and when it's so obvious that God is in something, that even an unbeliever stops and says, whoa, God really is in this. That's impressive. So as you go on about your day today, I want you guys to just meditate on the word and get over on into Psalm chapter 9. Make sure you don't leave out the psalm and pray through that. Anywho, that pretty much covers it for today. I encourage y'all to dig in, read the scripture for yourself, see see what happens, and just pray that you guys have a great day and that you guys are blessed and edified as you read through the scriptures. So until we meet again, I will see y'all tomorrow.
Bye.
Have a good day.